Hi, you guys may not believe it, but I'm still Joe Ottinger. So what I wanted to do today was take our previous video, which was basically building a very much trivial workstat synthesizer type thing. So here's what it sounds like right now. Again, very exciting, very, very exciting. But I wanted to add a little bit of a feature to it, just to show some more of the concepts that we're going to be working with. Again, the sounds that we're building are not necessarily musically pleasant or exceptionally useful yet, but we're trying to figure out how to chain reactor blocks together to build something that we can make more musical. The goal today is actually to create a warble on the oscillator pitch. We're going to hook up an LFO and an envelope generator and a VCA, which are three components that end up making our pitch warble as the sound goes on. So let's go ahead and clear this out because we don't really care about the top part yet. We're not even beginning to worry about making this look pretty. We're just trying to get it to work. So what we need is, first off, we're loading our workstat type thing. I've named it workstat even though it's not one. That's a mode copyright, etc. I'm sure, and they resent me or something. But it's, again, a very simple monosynth, one oscillator, an envelope for the filter, an envelope for the amplifier, nothing complicated. We're going to add an LFO, which is a low frequency oscillator. It just generates something very slowly, a wave. You can use a regular oscillator for it, but sound waves are really, really fast compared to what an LFO generates. So this is really useful for recognizable patterns that don't really fit musical appropriateness. You wouldn't normally use an LFO for sound, for example. So we have an LFO. We want to have another envelope generator. We're going to use the the Monarch ADSR again, or ADS, I guess in this case. Not because it's the best one or anything, but just because it's simple and we've already used it. And lastly, we need to have another VCA. Let's go ahead and label the LFO ADS so that we've got that recognizable. We're going to do the same thing for the VCA so we can figure out what these components are when we organize them at the top. It makes it easier to figure out what we're controlling. Now, the LFO, we don't really care about inputs. We want it constantly generating a wave, so we don't have to hook anything to it. The envelope, we want it to trigger whenever we press a key, so we've got to hook up a gate to that, just like we did these other ones. The output, okay, here's where things get fun. What we want to do is we want the LFO to drive our output. So we've got an LFO driven to a VCA. This means the VCA is by default going to mirror the LFO. But what we really want to do is we want to modify the impact of the amplifier based on the envelope. So what we do is we hook up the out to mod A. Okay, so this means that whenever we hit a key, the envelope is going to affect something on this VCA. And then we're going to have the VCA, we're going to chain that to the mod A input on the oscillator. Now, right now, this does nothing. Again, we've hooked all this stuff up. It's great fun, but it does nothing, and that's because we haven't set up any of the controls to reflect anything off of the mod. So let's go to our LFO VCA, select A, which is going to be important, and let's make it where the envelope affects the VCA level. You can see how when we press the note, it goes up and then slides back down, just like what we kind of want from an envelope generator. Now, what's happening now is that our LFO is actually being amplified and fed into our oscillator. But it's not doing anything because our oscillator hasn't been told to reflect any changes from mod A. So again, we come over here and we change the frequency. And you see all that little change. That doesn't really mean anything, but let's go ahead and make it a little bit more intense. Ooh, we now have a warble. It's not a very effective warble yet because our pulse is too slow, but now we have a sound that goes up and down. Now, if we increase the attack, what ends up happening is that it comes in after we start playing the note. So you can hear that at the beginning of the note, it's very steady. This frequency is not changing, but as the attack sets in, as the envelope continues to generate, the LFO is applied more and more to our output sound. Now, what does this mean for our musicality? That's a good question. What we're doing right here is actually pretty simple. I mean, you hear this sort of thing a lot in a lot of synthesizer lead stuff. You know, we usually don't generate it from an LFO. There's usually a mod wheel, and we can use that for the same purpose instead of our envelope. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to come up with a generative synthesis so that as we develop our sound, we can have generators actually control what's going on with the oscillators. Now, again, this is a very simple oscillator, a very simple circuit. Looking at it, you know, we've got an LFO going into a VCA, going into to modify the pitch. Nothing dramatic, but we can actually, with a I mean, we've only got so many pieces here, but we're starting to see the power of blocks where we can add features and add development to the sound simply by following electrical circuits, you know, going through the system. And, you know, again, I'm not like the world's master at this or anything, but I think it's really neat how we can start to generate, you know, new sounds and new features, especially when we start using this stuff like this to actually trigger notes. You know, I haven't gotten that far yet, but that's actually what we're trying to get to, where we're using these LFOs and other triggers to control mixing levels and frequency outputs. So that's kind of where we are. We've got, again, a very simple synthesizer, but we've got a nice little warble to the output where we can actually control what's going on, and we actually have a lot of power to you know, create neat sounds. Thanks for listening.